Welcome back to Beyond the Uniform. I'm Justin Nassiri, and each week I interview military veterans about their civilian career. Today's episode number 97 with Jonny Coreson. Well, on the show today, I am trying out a completely new format. It has never been done before on Beyond the Uniform. And if you like this format, if it's easier for you to consume the information or just overall more enjoyable for you, please let me know. On the website, LinkedIn, Facebook, or by email. That's justin@beyondtheuniform.io. Let me know because it takes quite a bit more time to do the episode in this format. If you like the old way, I'm making that available as well. I'll link to that on the website, and you can listen to the full, unedited version of this interview if you like that format more or if you just want more information. So let's dive in. Normally, I talk with veterans who have started their civilian career, but my guest today is actually still on active duty.
My name is Jonny Coreson. I'm currently stationed in Beaufort, South Carolina. I'm active duty. I have just under 10 years in the United States Navy, but I'll be separating soon and transitioning to a business that I started.
One of the reasons I wanted to speak with Jonny was that he started his own company, Jacketeer, while on active duty, and I thought that could help listeners who are on active duty thinking of doing the same. While on active duty, Jonny and his business partners designed something to solve a pain point they had experienced while in the military, getting ready for Navy advancement exams.
Well, what we do is we provide exam prep software available online via a subscription for the Navy advancement exam or promotion exam.
Jonny first got fired up for entrepreneurship when he was selected as one of 20 veterans to attend an Inc. 5000 military entrepreneurship program.
The Inc. 5000 military entrepreneurship program was really what kickstarted my own networking opportunities. I had heard of LinkedIn. I'd been on LinkedIn, but that was really my first experience shaking the hand of someone who could propel my business beyond my even measure of success. And so Inc. 5000, they have a military entrepreneurship program that's run by a lady named Natalie Thomas. She is wonderful. She is a huge supporter of the military and of events in general.
But Jacketeer wasn't Jonny's first experience starting a company. He actually started a previous company while on active duty at a time when he was first thinking about transitioning to a civilian career.
It was about 4 years ago. I was considering transitioning out of the military, but it was really only about 6 months before I was due to separate. And I had another business idea. I created an app for children to study their academic skills, math and literacy and things like that. And so what really kind of made my decision much easier to re-enlist was coming to grips with the reality that this business was not going to support me immediately, and that I needed to spend some time getting that off the ground and letting that support me at the same time before I made the decision to completely cut ties with the Navy.
So realizing how difficult it was to get enough traction with a company to be able to sustain oneself, Jonny applied what he learned from his first attempt at a company. And it started out not with this flash of inspiration, but by reaching out to a complete stranger.
Well, I found him on his website. I was doing some market research for the market that I'm in now, understanding who the players were in providing exam prep material to sailors. And he was currently operating the website. I just reached out. I sent the general support at bluejacketeer.com a message and said, hey, this is who I am, and I'd just like to start a dialogue or get to talking, and maybe there's some way that I can help you out.
I love this. I love the initiative Jonny showed in just reaching out to someone, cold emailing them as he's doing research. As you can see, it made all the difference for Jonny. None of this would have been possible in Jonny's life were it not for that very first email. But it wasn't just that. The partnership for Jonny and Alan didn't happen right away.
It took a while for Alan to invite me into the website itself and see the back end and understand the inner structure of the website. But I was providing just general guidance or even as a sounding board for ideas that he had. And I just found that I was thinking about his business more than I was thinking about my current business at the time. And that's really when I knew that I should probably, decide whether I'm going to fully commit to the children's game app or try to support something that Alan had that was just so tremendous in its potential that that's when I made the decision. That was about 6 weeks maybe or longer.
Out of a desire to connect with someone and a genuine effort to help and give feedback, Jonny's support form submission on Alan's website turned into a partnership that's lasted for 4 years and is going strong. Which is why one of the things I found most surprising in this story is Jonny has never actually met either of his business partners face to face.
Of the 3 partners that own the business, we've never met each other. I've never shaken Alan's hand or other business partner. So we've operated, I think, successfully based on an extreme amount of trust. And then on the other side, we have shared values. We all sincerely just want to see sailors succeed in their own careers, but then also increase their capacity for whatever their occupation is and just become better at that in general.
Given that Jonny's co-founder came about from a cold email, it's no surprise that Jonny will often tell other veterans to seize the moment and not miss out to reach out when opportunity presents itself.
That's another thing that's important for especially active duty is that when you see an opportunity, when you meet someone, you really need to take that step in faith and reach your hand out, shake someone's hand, say, hey, this is me. I've got this going on. Is there a way that maybe we could help each other out? And then really start to develop the relationship from there. I would say many times there are opportunities that sailors and other service members have where maybe a person's rank or maybe their ability to separate themselves from active duty for a period of time really gets in the way of future success.
One of the things that really struck me with this interview is the importance of having a partnership in entrepreneurship. For Jonny, it seems like having a co-founder has made all the difference in this second attempt at starting a company while on active duty.
I would say the most important thing to do is understand your weakness. And I started a tech business, an app for kids. And I realized pretty quickly that I'm not a technical genius. I had another team actually do the coding and development of the app. I designed most of it, but based on some experiences I've had with apps and some research I did. So I knew that my limitation was the technology side. And so when I found Alan online, I just reached out.
And with the second go-around, with 2 partners with complementary skill sets, things so far are going really, really well.
We've all kind of come to this point where we realize that we are cooperating and collaborating with people significantly more qualified than us in certain areas. We have a marketing team that adds value. We have these mentors that have been successful in their business to add value. And so we have seen a lot of growth in our personal lives as well, just gleaning this information from these people. And it's like Jim Rohn said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if the 3 of us just spent time with the 3 of us at all times and never brought in those really intelligent and successful people, then we might run the risk of just becoming stagnant.
Blue Jacketeer has been growing steadily. Although they use Facebook to promote their business, most of their growth has come about organically.
And I'll be honest, I think most of our growth is due to word of mouth. And that's because when a sailor uses our website and he's impressed by maybe the user interface or the way that the questions kind of start to fall off once you start getting successful at answering the questions, or maybe they have used our site over a period of time and then they advanced. And when another sailor comes up to them and says, hey, I know you've been struggling to get at this test score, and obviously it worked for you. What did you do? And that right there is the best piece of validation for us when a sailor can say, you know what, I used Blue Jacketeer, and then that that 2 or 3 sailors listening can turn around and they'll probably Google something similar to Blue Jacketeer.
Now, while things are going well, Blue Jacketeer is not without its challenges. One of the toughest challenges we talked about, pricing.
We spend a lot of time and energy and money generating this content. And so on one end, if we didn't charge a certain amount, then we would go out of business. Then we would be forced out of business because we aren't operating at a level that's sustainable, or maybe even at a level that allows us to grow into the rates that are hardest to reach because they're smaller. So we really have to balance our initiatives to grow, and then also our respect for the sailor. And that really comes from one of our taglines on our website. This is for sailors by sailors. And so I'm active duty. I know the financial limitations of an E3 going up for E4, and I want to bring that to a point where we talk about value proposition. And so that's how I approach the price point, is that if a user spends a certain amount of money and they use the site correctly, and it increases their chances at advancing, even if it takes a cycle or two, their immediate response is an extra, sometimes $200 in their paycheck every month. So it's really an investment in your future, but not just in money, but also in time.
I asked Jonny for his advice for people on active duty who are looking to start their first company, and he had a few things to say.
Justin, I would say first, pitch that around with your friends, while you're just sitting around a table drinking some tasty adult beverages or something. Just try to get that idea in front of people who love you and who are willing to tell you exactly what you need to hear. Not a bunch of yes men. Certainly don't talk to those people or try to glean their support if you know that they're just going to support you in whatever you do, like your parents sometimes. But my first advice would be to reach out to those closest to you and pitch that around. And once you have that idea, you feel like it's validated with maybe even a customer that you feel like you'd have to reach out to later. Then at that point, I'd say take a step forward and reach out to some of these resources that are available for military entrepreneurs.
A few specific resources that Jonny mentioned that I'll link to in the show notes at beyondtheuniform.io are Bunker in a Box, the book The $100 Startup, and the website Veterati, which pairs veterans with mentors in a desired civilian sector. So what's ahead for Blue Jacketeer? Well, there's one major change that's happening in Jonny's life right now.
Well, I just ran my last PRT, my last physical test yesterday, and I'm starting to work on my end of tour evaluations and things like that. So it's really sinking in that my time in the military is coming to a close. But what's nice about the market that I'm in is that I'll kind of always have that lingo, and I'll be connected to people who are active duty based on my responsibilities in developing the business. So I won't lose completely the camaraderie that I've gained and come to enjoy in the military, but it's really settling in that I'm not going to be a sailor. I will have been prior sailor, veteran.
That is Jonny Coreson. You can find him at bluejacketeer.com. Well, that's all for this week's episode. If you want to listen to more, there's quite a lot that we talked about that didn't make this cut. Go to beyondtheuniform.io and you'll find the full unedited interview. I'd like to edit that out. The full unedited version of this interview there. Like I said before, if you like this new format, it's a little bit more abbreviated, a little bit more focused, definitely drop me a line. I'm going to go back to the old format till I get a chance to get a little bit more feedback, and if people like this, I'll start doing it this new way. As always, our sponsor is audible.com. If you sign up for a free trial at beyondtheuniform.io/books, you'll find a link there. Not only do you get one free audiobook, completely free, you get a chance to try out Audible, and Beyond the Uniform gets a $15 bonus towards helping support the cost of production. That's all I've got, and see you next week. Well, joining me today in Beaufort, South Carolina is Jonny Coreson. Jonny, welcome to Beyond the Uniform. So, Jonny, just to start things off, if you could introduce yourself for listeners, who you are and what you're up to. Awesome. And, I'm wondering, we'll talk in a little bit about Blue Jacketeer, but I'm wondering, is that the first startup you've played around with, or what has been your road to entrepreneurship? That's great. And I'm wondering, what has it been like? Actually, let's start with Blue Jacketeer. How would you describe Blue Jacketeer and what you do? And how did this idea first start? And so you've been working on how long has this been going now? That's awesome. And I guess what have been some of the, well, first of all, for listeners who are on active duty who would like to start a company while on active duty, what advice do you have for them? I'm sure you've learned a lot over the last 4 years. What would you want them to know about starting a company while also having a full time job in the military?
Hey, thanks for having me, Justin. Absolutely. My
That's awesome. And for listeners, I'll put a link in the show notes for Bunker in a Box so you can find that. Any while we're on that topic, what other resources? It could be books or courses or advice. What other resources have helped
Well,
you
it
in your own
first
entrepreneurial
started
journey?
with my business partner, Alan, many years ago, who started to work on the design elements, the interface, the back end, the database, and he really worked out all the kinks over the first 18 months and even started working on an app that would synchronize with the website at the same time back then, too. Well, the concept itself has been going for about 4 years, but the actual company that we own is called Patriot Labs, and the product is Blue Jacketeer. So Patriot Labs has been in business for just over a year.
That's great. And I had a question on I haven't actually heard about the Inc. 5000 military entrepreneurship program. Could you describe that for listeners of kind of how they get involved with that and what the benefits of it are?
And I'll throw one out there that I thought was my favorite, and it's called Bunker in a Box. And it's run by a nonprofit that has what they call bunkers throughout America. And they're actual brick and mortar places you can go, collaboration spaces, and they have meetups and musters and that kind of event. But then they also have this online, so no matter where you find yourself, you can plug into this resource, Bunker in a Box, and it's really geared for that sailor, that soldier, that Marine who's maybe overseas at the time who wants to start developing his entrepreneurial skills. And it's a 14 module course. You go through an extensive uh, course on entrepreneurship from start to finish, and then even some of the facets that may not apply to you now but will later. And in the end, you score points, you get badges, you progress, and once you're done, you get an email that says congratulations and a little bit of support, and maybe even the address to the nearest bunker so you can take the next step. Well, me personally, I feel like so. That's really helped me. There's a book called $100 Startup by Chris Gaibo. Um, And I
It's
think that would be most
that really resonates.
helpful
I think that
to
there's
those
so much
individuals who are not
value to
quite
just having a
sure
clear intention
about,
when you go into
this big
something. And
master
one of the
plan
things,
of starting a
I mean,
business, but they
obviously
have
at
this
the Inc.
idea or they have this
5000
skill
at
that
this
they want to
event,
turn
I
into
imagine you get
maybe
so
some
much
passive
more. You
income
extract so much
on the
more value
weekends or
because you have
something
a
like that. That's a
clear
good way of starting
idea
while you're
you're
active
applying this
duty.
to, and you have
And then I would
really
say,
tangible
lastly,
goals that you
on a
wanted
list
to
of
achieve. You want to meet people
resources
who are going
that
to
have
help your
helped me,
business. And
I
I love that
heard,
because I
I think
imagine
it
that
was
applies to starting a company
Justine
in the military
mentioned,
as
one of
well, where
your
you're just
previous
forced to
podcasters
try and
mentioned
learn as much as possible as
Veterati,
you're going.
and
You're forced,
I
like
plugged into Veterati about
every
3 months ago after
event
I'd already
like that
started
that
the
you
business,
attend, you're
and here
trying
I
to
am
like apply
transitioning out of
it
the
to
military
how you could
thinking,
grow a
let
business.
me
And I
just
think that's
reach
just
out and
such a
see if
great
there's
way
someone
to
on there
learn
that
anything, of just
may kind of
having
really fit
something
my
tangible to
niche
apply it to. So
as
I
a
really just
mentor.
applaud you on
And
having,
I was surprised at the
started this on
matches
the
that I got
side and
and
really
the
taken
response that I
every
got when I
opportunity to try
met
and
my
grow it
first few
as you move
mentors.
forward. Um, how are things? I guess, yeah. How are things with Blue Jacketeer? Like, where are you guys at? What are some of the optics?
Absolutely. So Inc. is a magazine, and one of their publications every year lists the 5,000 and the 500 fastest growing companies in America. There are a few wickets that you need to hit. First and foremost, $1 million in revenue. And then after that, it's mostly based on your growth over a period of time. So these are very successful and currently successful businesses that make this list. And the military entrepreneurship program is a cooperation between I believe it's McNeese Thomas Group, who's an event coordinator. I mentioned Natalie Thomas, and they have partnered with Inc. to allow 20, and sometimes a few more, 20 members of the military or veteran or
So how does
spouse
this work?
network
So if let's say
to
I'm a sailor right
attend
now and
that
I'm
event
preparing
and then
for
have a
an upcoming
special
advancement exam,
series of
when I
maybe
sign
keynote
up for a
speakers
subscription,
or
you talked
lunch
about
and
service and
learns
community.
just
I'm
for the
imagining there's
military
like, is
group
it like training
to
modules?
really
And
just
I think on your
add
site you talk
value to
about like
whatever
a
their product
flashcard type
or
approach.
project is at the
Take
time.
us through what it's
And so
like for
I
someone who
went back
signs
in
up.
2014. I think it was November, and my experience was I think as good as it can get, because I went as an active duty. I took leave and said, hey, I asked my command. I told them what I was doing. They kind of looked at me funny. It was Phoenix, Arizona. I'd never been there before. I knew nobody there. But I went there with a mission in mind, and that was to increase my capacity to run my business. And to do that, step one was to learn. So I really had to reach out. And then, step two at that point was to meet some people that maybe could just give me a nugget of wisdom that I could use maybe later on. So I had a notepad. I scratched out every encounter that I had. I scratched down notes and names and people. And I think personally, because I went into it with the intent of growing my business, and not just as a social event or an opportunity to kind of rub elbows with other successful people, I think that really changed my experience there.
What advice do you have for people about figuring out the right price point? I'm just wondering because you set up a subscription model. I'm wondering how you figured out what to charge people to really both benefit the sailor but also give you a viable business.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely growing. We are still young in our phase of growth. So our goal is to reach as many of the sailors as possible. And that really takes time, and that takes some, like you said, learning how to run a business. So we've started to reach out to some business mentors through the Veterati network and other networks to help establish some of the groundwork that will really allow us to operate our business in the most successful way, but then also in the most honest way that we can for our customers, so that eventually they're getting not just the product that they purchased, but services and support and community, and then we could give back as well. When they sign up, the sailor is really just looking for a resource that supports their current study strategy and whatever that may be. And so we always suggest that a sailor actually get their bibliography, get the instructions that are on there, do some reading themselves, maybe highlight that themselves as well. But for those that want to practice their skills or hone in on that one or two subjects that
And
they
how
know
have
they're going to have an
you thought
issue
about
with
growing your
moving
team?
forward, then we
Are
invite
most of
them
them
to
active duty as well,
answer
or how have you
questions on
gone
our
about
website.
adding
And
to your
currently,
team?
what we have is spaced repetition software and a database of thousands of questions related to every test. And the spaced repetition software really helps to dwindle that stack. You said flashcards, and you can imagine if I had a stack of 4,000 flashcards, and using spaced repetition after a long period of time, even short amounts of time per day, but over the course of a month or two, I'm down to the maybe 200 or 300 flashcards that I have the most struggle answering, and that's really where our product helps sailors succeed, is that they're not answering questions over and over and over. If they get them right, if they've proven that knowledge successfully, then they won't see that question again. That's really hard, Justin, and the hard thing about that is that
And how do you get the word out to other people about Blue Jacketeer? Oops, sorry, I was on mute. What about I'm wondering for because I imagine some of the people that want to use this tool are away at sea and don't have access to wireless internet. Is there like a way for them to access this when they're out at sea?
So the current price point that we have is for our general service of in rate, and then also the primary military knowledge, is $19.99 a month, and then we offer a 6-month discount. And really moving forward, what we'd like to do is like I said, just start adding to that service. So we might not change our price point ever again, but you'll start to get more out of this. It won't just be advancement exam, but when you go up for qualifications or when you're up for a warfare device, that we could provide a place where you already know and trust us, and you can come back and study for that as well. Well, we have business owners, and then we
And
have right
what's been the
now
most
a
challenging
series of
aspect
writers.
of
And our writers have
starting and growing a
fluctuated
company while on
over
active
time.
duty?
Really, some have come and gone, mostly because once we get the question database set, there's not a lot of work we have for our writers. We have, I'd say right now, about 75% of them are active duty and 25% are recently retired. And we hire based on qualifications and their ability to write to an exam. And so if you think about it, even those junior sailors that take the exam might have an ability to glean the type of information that we need for them to regurgitate once they start writing for the exam. But if you look at how the Navy does it, the Navy has chief petty
I
officers
mean,
write the
that's so
exam.
hard for me. I
So it's
mean,
really important
running a
for us to
company
get
right now, I'm
people
just imagining,
in the
how do you
same
handle
pay
that when
grade,
you're
in the
away?
same
Is it kind of like
mindset,
a
and
passing of a baton with Alan,
exposure
where
to
you're,
the
he as a
primary military
partner
knowledge, and then
keeps things
also
going,
the
and then you're caught
in-rate
back up to
knowledge.
speed? Like,
And
how do
that
you
really
keep that
helps us
momentum
balance
going?
out our question database. Well, right now we use mostly Facebook, and
Do you have advice for anyone on active duty or veterans on how do you find that right co-founder, and how do you make that relationship work? You talked about Alan and one other co-founder. What are some tips that you would have on things for them to keep in mind as they look for that person and as they forge that relationship with them?
absolutely, Justin. In fact, our website works on Navy computers as well. So if you do have a computer in your space, or there's a library on your ship, or you're out in the desert somewhere, you do have some access to a computer. And we've heard, and we've gotten some feedback that that really works for sailors to spend that time in the library or something similar, dedicated to study. But also, we're working on an application that, like I said, will sync to the website your progress. And at some point, you'll be able to take that offline. You'll be able to, I don't know, push a button, or whatever mechanism our tech team figures out. You'll be able to take that offline and use that study material for a period of time before you can link it back to your website and synchronize your progress with both your app and the website login.
And what would you? I'd
Well,
love
I
to
would
dive in on that. I
say
think that's such a valid
in
point. Like,
terms of
what would
being
you say to them,
active
for these
duty,
people that kind of let
there's a
that
time
stand in the
commitment
way
that is
of them
absolutely
pursuing
necessary. And I
entrepreneurship
think
or
when
pursuing anything?
some people think that when starting a business that you have to somehow push aside something else, or spend more time in one area or the other. I really think that compartmentalization is key to how I've been able to progress through having a business before, and then moving to a deployment, and then coming back from that deployment and getting things started with Alan. Well, I haven't been deployed since we started Blue Jacketeer, but I have moved my family across the country, and Alan's moved houses. We also have another business
That's great
partner who
advice.
manages
And
mostly the
you mentioned that
writers. So
you met
a lot
or
of
you
what
found
we do
Alan
can be
online. What site did
thrown
you
up in a
use, or
chat
what site
room,
would you
and
recommend for people finding a
dialogue
co-founder?
occurs, and then I can have my actionable items and step aside and do my portion, my swim lane, and then Alan can do his, and then our other business partner can do his. So if there's a time where I need to step away, then I can just, let my partners know that this time I will be unavailable, and they'll pick up the slack for a period of time. And we've done that for each other, over the months that we've been in business.
How long was it until you sent that kind of support request until you guys actually started working together? I'm just curious what that relationship building was like.
And
That's great. It's I just love the way that organically grew and how it all started because you took a risk, you took that initiative to reach out, and it sounds like
especially
you were
for
just
those who are
genuinely
transitioning,
interested and
I think
genuinely
it's
trying to
important
help.
for a
And
person
over the
to
course of a
almost
month or so,
disregard, especially
that
junior
led
sailors or
to being
junior
able to
enlisted and
forge a
junior
partnership
officers,
that might not have been
almost
available
disregard your previous rank,
if you weren't willing to just
because
kind of
moving
get to know
forward,
each
you were
other
civilian, you
and
were
try to find
Jonny
ways to add
Coreson,
value for him.
civilian. And I am limited only by my potential and by the unique experiences that I've had. So if I am able
Mm.
to switch that mind, even while I'm active duty for a period of time, understanding that eventually I will operate in an environment with other veterans of various rank structures or whatever, um, it's absolutely important to be able to say that these are my limitations, like I mentioned, and this is what I think I'm really good at. No matter what I was doing in the military, it might not even be
Are
close to
are
what your
both of your
job was.
partners in on active duty? Okay. And what's ahead for Blue Jacketeer? Like, what do you and for yourself as you think of transitioning in the near future?
So I would say also, if that strategy doesn't work, um, there are networks out there, whether they're on Facebook or LinkedIn or other websites, that you can just put yourself out there, and you create a profile. This is who I am, and maybe let others come to you. But really, like I mentioned before, you sometimes have to just take that step of faith, send an email and say, this is who I am. It was a couple weeks, I think. We kind of vetted each other. Maybe we linked up on
That's awesome.
Facebook,
And do you see
and
Blue Jacketeer
it
expanding beyond just the Navy into the other branches? This is awesome. Well, I always like to leave the last question open ended, which is, we talked about a lot of the questions I had, but what else would you want listeners to know? I'd love to just give you the floor to share any final words of wisdom.
absolutely. And one interesting tidbit is that right now I'm the only one on active duty. Well, I think that
This is great. Well, Johnny, I appreciate your time and advice on this. For listeners, everything we discussed will be in our show notes at beyondtheuniform.io. All the resources that Johnny mentioned, and also a link to his site, Blue Jacketeer. Johnny, thanks for the advice, and
so
good luck with the transition.
moving forward, I'll move to Denver, Colorado with my family, and I'll have a little home office upstairs while the kids are homeschooled in the basement, and we'll try to make it work as civilians for a couple years, and hopefully, decide that maybe Denver's the place we settle. But like the military, after 3 years, you kind of get a little restless and expecting someone to tell you where to move. As a civilian, you got to make that decision yourself. No, I don't think so, Justin. And I think the reason we won't, at least in the immediate term, is that we have so much to offer sailors and there's room for us to grow. And so until we get to a point where we've saturated the market, we've increased all of the services that we think we could add to a subscription while also still remaining viable, we might look at other similar businesses and see where we can compete, maybe even where our sailors are moving to. Because, when sailors transition, some of the hardest things for a sailor to do is to grab those qualifications or specifically exams that they prep for when they separate. And so if they already trust us, maybe we move into peripheral exams or qualifications that they need when they separate. Well, most recently, and the other thing is that, in the military, we are told this is what you need to do. You turn around, you tell your subordinates, this is how we're going to do it, and life moves on. But as an entrepreneur, it's all left to us, and we have to decide, whether we're going to take one road or the other. And success very much depends on how we handle those situations. So, in the absence of direct orders, we as a team, we still need to move forward and become successful as a business and as people in general. Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.